how show yous about board games. Today I am going to do one that's really just based on the TV show Chopped. If you're not familiar with Chopped, it is a reality TV cooking show where there are 3 rounds. There are basket items that must be used for these 4 chefs that start. They have to cook, normally it starts with an appetizer round first. They have basket ingredients that they have to use and then transform into something new. And then based on that performance, one of the chefs gets chopped, they go to the entree round, same thing. Someone gets chopped, they go to the dessert round, same thing. You have your winner. Okay, so obviously I can't do exactly that same function when we're dealing with Chopped in the literature classroom. So I made some adaptations to it and used it for the first time today. And I wanted to kind of talk you through it so you have an idea of something you can go out and use tomorrow if you want to. Very easy setup. This is just a slide that I made myself in Google Slides. There was a font that I picked that matched kind of the block letter type that Chopped used. I found this butcher knife, again, as a free image that I could include, and then just change the background to orange. Very easy. I spent maybe 5 minutes tops putting this all together. Okay. Then as we progress, I did 3 rounds again. So like round 1, each round gives the instructions for that round. So this one, pick at least 2 of the responses to transform into a new response that answers the following question for either story. So this is the point where, and I'll put this in to show you, the desks all have sticky notes on them. They've been responding to 2 stories that we've been reading, answering different questions, not these specific questions that they'll be asked, but questions that will help them use evidence and make inferences and all that. So now what they're being able to do, it's like having a basket and basket items and a kitchen that's stocked. They can go through and pull different evidence. It doesn't need to be theirs. It just needs to match what the overall question is asking them to do. And they're transforming those pieces of evidence into something new, into something original that they have written. As we read The Third Wish and The Monkey's Paw, they had questions that we would every once in a while stop and answer. And they would ask for inferences, they would ask for the students to look at conflict, they would ask for the students to look at language. This is just some sampling of that, so that they had to interact more with the story. But I had them write the responses on sticky notes. And when they asked why they had to write it on sticky notes, I told them it was so we could move them when we needed to. Because I had an idea in mind, but I wasn't quite sure exactly how I was going to implement it. So once we came in today, I had the desks prepared with question 1. I wrote in dry erase markers. So I just went through question 1, question 2. I went to the next desk that was by it, question 3. And notice that I did label it Third Wish, because then when I went to the next table and labeled them, okay, through question 8 here. Then we get to question 9, Third Wish is done, and now we need Monkey's Paw, and the questions start over again. So that was my qualifier with how they knew where to go. And I did use that table of desks over there, and the far table, and then I had to use part of that one too. So they're displaced from their seats for that time, but this is where then the sticky notes get placed. Now I did ask them to get into groups of 2 to 3. I didn't have this as an individual task. I thought it would be kind of more of that exciting collaboration if they were able to be in small groups. I would not suggest going over 3. It'd be too chaotic if you had 4 people. And already with 3, you take the chance based on your students that you might have to be redirecting some of them to stay on task instead of 2 people having a conversation while 1 person works, that type of thing. Okay, so they're in their groups, they get this first task, they know they're going to be going and having to pull 2 pieces of evidence because it says at least 2, so if they can't get at least 2 pieces pulled, then they get chopped from that round. Now obviously I don't want students to be able to just opt out of doing this because they didn't get the evidence they need. So my version of chopped is a little bit different. You would need to decide what worked for you. For me, at least right now, being chopped doesn't happen quite yet. So being chopped will happen tomorrow. They're still required to go through all the rounds. What happens is at the end of this 5 minutes, they're allowed that 5 minutes to go through this and write a response. Then if they didn't finish, then I would tell them, okay, now you just kind of got yourself a little bit farther behind. You're going to have to try to finish at the beginning of the next round and then move on to the next task. it still gives them some chance to redeem themselves, to still stay in it, maybe not get chopped, because on the show, forgetting a basket ingredient doesn't necessarily mean that you're chopped. A lot of times it does, but it doesn't always happen that way. So it's kind of the same principle. You still have a chance to stay in it, even if you didn't quite finish the task on time. So as I read this with them and tell them what they need, then we go through and make sure they don't have any questions. Now this is language that we've used throughout, so it's things that they're familiar with. So basically, when it gets down to here, it says, give 2 examples and explain why they are helpful in understanding the main idea. This whole question is working at citing evidence, pulling out main ideas, what the author is trying to tell you. And the sticky notes that they're going to be pulling off of the desk are those pieces of evidence. They're those 2 examples. So they're also having to evaluate the evidence that they're looking at. Since they can choose anybody's sticky notes, it's not just theirs in front of them. Someone else might grab theirs before they get to it. They have to say whether that evidence was good or not. So they progress through that. Then the second round, we do sketch notes as our form of note-taking. So throughout the story, they had to keep a sketch note for the story. They have to pull it back out now, and using only the sketch note, summarize the story. And then by marking with a star or circling on their sketch note, they have to show the ideas that help them answer this part. What lesson is the author trying to have you understand about life? Again, all in 5 minutes. And then our final round, now it's up to pick at least 3 of those pieces of evidence, so those basket items, to use in answering this question. Okay, again, only 5 minutes. So far it's gone really well. I've used it with a couple of sections. We've had fun. I asked for feedback, and yes, they want to do it again. One of the things that they did say was that some of the handwriting can be hard to read, and we know that. It can be hard to get through some of those pieces of writing when they are handwritten. And in order to combat this, we talked about a solution could be upping the time limit to 7 minutes instead of 5, because it gives them a little bit more time to go through and actually evaluate what's written on those sticky notes, since it's not their own handwriting. And I think that is a good suggestion, and something that I'll be incorporating, because again, they're not coming in thinking that they're going to have to read someone else's writing, so this helps accommodate that. I'm hoping that you've liked what you've seen. I'm going to show you, I'm going to put on to the end here a little clip of how this worked in my classroom. You'll see how the students are working together, what the setup looked like. If you have tried something similar to this chopped session, please in the comments let us know how it went, what you did. If you have any great suggestions, love to hear those too. And if you decide to try it for the first time, please share that with us. I would love to see how it goes for you. This is definitely a win, easy to do. Any content area, you can address that. I just think that sometimes it's that end of the year, getting out of it. Do I really want to try something new when I'm this close to the end? Yes, the answer is always yes, you do. This was a great activity. I'm so glad that I went ahead and worked with it, and I can incorporate it next year now from the beginning. So if you enjoyed what you saw, I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you next time on Mrs. Cford Vlogs.
There's something with text evidence.
Yeah,